like it's an aesthetic show, but it functions because it actually does, because the clothes come through the door, we sort them, they're in the roll cages, they're in the Beckerton or Mr. Beckett's bins, which is kind of, you're expecting Happy Days there, and then it goes into the next room to
and
go
it's
on
like,
the conveyor
I
belt.
can't go on, I'll go on.
I'll go on to the next room. But I mean, if you go to a recycling centre, which you did in Liberties, which is an unbelievably chaotic place, and you're dealing with very chaotic people and their lives. And, you know, I didn't particularly necessarily choose the place. It just kind of happened to fall into my lap, because it's one of the very few places in Ireland that still functions as a recycling centre. But I mean, yes, Liberties is a drug rehabilitation centre. It's mostly run and worked by people from drug recovery, particularly in heroin, and they're on a particular government methadone programme. The beauty of it is they've done several programmes on Liberties, but I mean, I'm not dwelling on any, I'm not particularly interested what these people have done with their previous lives, but it's fascinating that this whole place is functioning on the theme of my work, which was our questions about life and death. I think it's quite interesting, without being, you know, suggestive to these people's lives, but, you know, they're almost on the kind of knife edge of their own lives. But that really has nothing to do with the work. It just so happened that it was a coincidence that kind of fell parallel with the work. I accidentally fell into the whole idea of clothes purely by, I've always had an obsession with working with cloth. Like, I've worked with really hard materials from the past to really soft materials from wax, right down to burning mountains of candles, down to working in cast iron. And it's just another material to me, a very interesting material, because it's got that kind of transitory quality where it's recyclable, you know.
And it's also so socialised by the human bodies that have inhabited it.
Totally.
And had stories.
Totally. And I mean, I wouldn't go off the beaten track and start talking about craft elements, but I really was, when I was 14, I was obsessed with making quilts and making kind of weird sort of outfits. And I mean, it's all part of art to me, whatever you do. Knitting circles, people making quilts from their old son's jeans, and making a massive quilt of the memories of other people's working jeans. In America, there was a kind of a patchwork quilt society that I joined, where everyone had to bring a part of someone they knew. And
Did you really?
Yeah, it was pretty loaded stuff. Yeah, this all took place up in Maine for the summer. And these people are really seriously into patchwork. But like, you know, I thought this is kind of interesting. But actually, in a kind of way, it's also quite interesting because they're actually unconsciously reflecting on recycling and the way they'll all end up themselves. So it's actually, deep down inside, the actual whole show is really all to do with death, actually. Because... you know, without breaching the subject too loud, you know, clothes are the first thing that comes when you're working, you know, when you're close with people or people's memories, or they wear clothes once and then they don't wear them anymore, and then they bring them to a shop and then they go and buy more clothes, and it's just evolves over the passing the time of day and evolving over our short time here on the planet. If we bring up the subject of that, then we could bring up maybe closer to the subject of discussing where we're all going to go, you know, and kind of deep down inside at the end of the show, it kind of touches on those kind of ideas, you know, that pretty much everything in the planet is recyclable, or I hope so, and that's kind of the way that things are going to evolve. And there is a bit of a Rumpelstiltskin quality to the exhibition. I mean, I really wanted to kind of set up a magical fairy tale where people go in and they don't know what's going on in the third room, and then the piles of clothes are piling up outside the door, and there could be an elf in there working away weaving and producing gold out of more cloth, because I mean, some people came in and couldn't believe the amount of money that's made out of our waste, you know. But remember, our throwaway waste, or our rags, are other people's riches, you know, especially in the third world, because we're wasteful people and we're rich people.